The Parliament has been prorogued, and we are debating this bill because we have an incredible shrinking Prime Minister. A Prime Minister whose standing diminishes as each day goes by. A Prime Minister who simply talks and talks and talks. A Prime Minister who only stands up for the things that he doesn't believe in. This Prime Minister doesn't believe in equal marriage and an equal marriage plebiscite. He thinks it will be divisive and unnecessary, but he's supporting it anyway. This Prime Minister doesn't believe in the coalition's direct action policy, but he's standing up for handing billions of taxpayers' dollars to the nation's worst polluters. This Prime Minister doesn't believe the Queen of England should be our head of state, but he's standing up against moves towards an Australian republic. This Prime Minister is a conviction-free zone. He is a Prime Minister soft on corporate tax dodgers, but tough on Australian families. This Prime Minister wants to hike the GST, but he lacks the conviction to take it to an election. This Prime Minister wants to cut company tax, but he lacks the conviction to take it to an election because the voters are on to the big end of town. This Prime Minister wants the states and territories to raise income tax, but he lacks the conviction to stand up for his own thought bubble. This Prime Minister wants the federal government to fund well-heeled private schools, but doesn't believe the federal government should fund public schools. This Prime Minister waffles on about agility and innovation while he watches highly skilled, well-paid jobs disappear from shipbuilding, car manufacturing, steel making and metal manufacturing. This Prime Minister waffles on about transition while at the same time presiding over the gutting of the education and training systems that are essential to the transition he waffles on about. This Prime Minister indicated he supported every aspect of the 2014-15 horror budget. Remember the cuts to pensions, unemployed with no funding, no income for 6 months, and cuts to family support. Cuts to education, cuts to health. This is a Prime Minister who said last September, when he announced his challenge to Mr. Abbott, and I quote, "What we have not succeeded in doing is translating those values into the policies and the ideas that will excite the Australian people and encourage them to believe and understand that we have a vision for their future." This Prime Minister has failed just as miserably as his predecessor. Nobody is excited. Nobody is encouraged. No one has a clue what the Prime Minister stands for or what his vision might be. The word on everyone's lips is disappointment. How often do you hear it? I'm very disappointed in Malcolm Turnbull. And those opposite have heard it as well. You've heard it. You hear it every day. You hear it in the pubs. You hear it in the clubs. You hear it in the shops. You hear it in taxis. I've lost count of the people who have said it to me. What's been the point of the Abbott and Turnbull governments? Absolutely nothing. Nothing but their ideological obsessions. Nothing but their forays into the cultural obsessions of the political fringe. That's why we are here today debating this bill. That's why the Parliament has been prorogued. We are debating this bill because the incredible shrinking Prime Minister has nothing left. 6 months in the job and there's nothing left in his locker. Maybe only the stale stench of Tony Abbott's policies that he can't rid himself of.